We're going to be going over one of the best games that I played on chess.com. So here we played d4, e6. I was playing white this game. Bishop f4, d5, knight to f3, c5, c3, knight to c6, e3, knight to f6, queen to c2, bishop to d6, bishop to g3, castle, knight b d2, b6, knight to e5, queen to c7, knight df3, knight e4, bishop d3. So this setup is called the London system. It's a very simple setup to play with the white pieces, and I recommend it to many beginners. And so it might look kind of boring, but you could get amazing games with this setup. So after we played bishop to d3, the game continues. f5, defending this knight. And so I castle here, and so this move is actually a blunder, as white takes this bishop and now my pawns become disconnected and this knight is not defended as many times anymore. And so white simply takes, and now the knight's not defended. This queen is eyeing this pawn, which is very weak, and so I have forced to play the move rook a e1, and now this is completely losing for white. So I wanted to show you this game because I made a comeback in this game. So after g6, play g4, attacking the pawn, c4, bishop back, queen takes e3 to check, king h1, queen to c5, g takes f5, e takes f5, bishop to f3, making my bishop better along this diagonal. And then after bishop to b7, I play rook to e5. So I have the idea of putting more pressure on this pawn because this pawn is pinned to this queen, so he cannot move it. So he plays rook here, I go rook here. So if he's gonna take my rook, I'm gonna take with my rook. So bishop to c6, we have queen to d5. So after rook to d8, we play rook to e7. And now after, he wants to trade rooks, but obviously I'm not gonna trade. So he takes, rook there, attacking my queen. I go queen to h4. This threatens mate on h7. Now after this move, the position is equal. Black is not winning anymore. So he plays h6, and then I play h3, which you might think, oh, this is a free pawn, right? No, but if I take this pawn, white has to move rook to e8, and that's checkmate. So before you take the pawn, you want to make sure that your king has an escape square. So after this, he plays queen here. He's threatening checkmate on e8, on e1, sorry. And then after king over g4, and then I play queen to d4, threatening checkmate on g7. So it's a very dynamic game. So black is making threats, white is making threats, and then after queen to e5, we trade off the queens and go into a rook pawn bishop endgame. Bishop to d7, king to f2, g4. I play bishop back because takes, and then rook to e6, protecting the pawn. I play bishop to f3 because I'm threatening this pawn, and he cannot defend it with here as he simply loses the b6 pawn. So after rook to d6, I play a4. So the idea is now I'm gonna push on the queen side, and after this move he cannot take back with the pawn because his pawn is pinned. So d4, and now this is winning for me as I have a5. After takes, he goes rook here. He's sort of a desperate move because there's not much you could do. And then after king to e1, rook to d3. After a takes b6, I'm gonna promote this pawn to a queen. plays rook e3 check, king to d2. There's no more checks. Rook here, rook here, king here, f4. So I left this bishop here because even if he takes this bishop, he's not gonna be able to stop the g7 to g8 push. And I play g7. So this is like, as you can see, 65.7, and white has made in 42 moves. So bishop to f5, simply move the rook because you don't want to run into this check where you go here and you lose the rook. So after this, rook here, king here. Now there's no more checks. So we play rook here because this pins the rook to the king, and if the rook takes back, we promote to a queen and we're winning. So that's exactly what happened. So king to g7, queen here, king to g6, queen to c6, king to g5 and h4, sacrificing the pawn as we want to get the king closer to the bishop, because the reason for this is because if the king takes the pawn, the queen and the bishop just are easy to connect. And so after king take, we go here, check, king over, and then we take the bishop, queen there, and then take. After pawn push, takes, king over, queen there, takes, then king to b4. So the idea is you're gonna sack this pawn and then maybe take, and then push this pawn. Just very easy to convert. So here we go here, takes, we take the pawn finally. So now we take this pawn too. Now white is gonna definitely win here. So king f3, d3. We just simply push, and then we don't you see how you're not allowing white to get this square. This is very important because if this black king gets in front of the pawn, you're not gonna win. It's gonna be a draw. So after king f7, king d7, now this is a win. We simply promote the pawn and we get a queen, and now it's made in 9 moves. So after here we go king to e5 and king to e7. So getting whenever you have a queen and king, you want to make sure they're opposite to one another. King here, queen here, king here, we check, king, we get the opposition. Just see how you repeat the pattern of getting the opposition with the king and the king are one square apart from each other. So king here, we don't go here and we push, and so after this it's checkmate. So the reason I wanted to show this to you is how this opening has the reputation of being very boring, but as you can see, you could play this opening and you could turn your games into something very exciting. And so if you want to learn more on this opening, you could let me know down in the comments, and I'll make a entire video teaching you how to play this opening and some of the ideas that white could use and really attack black. And this opening doesn't need to be boring. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.